Oh, hello there again, and welcome back to Phil Talking D20. So, today's video. Happy Christmas. The keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed that I'm wearing the same Christmas jumper, suspiciously because perhaps the videos from yesterday and today were filmed on the same day. So, well done on passing your perception check. Now, Monsters of Myth. What is it? What's it about? Why is it cool? So, this is not a detailed breakdown of every single monster, because that's a little bit of a spoiler. It's a general overview of what this book is trying to do, and why it's quite cool, quite unique, and quite pretty, because the artwork is stunning. I mean, I literally, when Paizo tweeted, because this is a December release book, the artwork of the front cover, which has this crazed kind of monstrous Linnorm, which is essentially a wingless kind of bestial dragon on the front cover. I literally was just like, oh my god, that is incredible. Like, the art in this book is fab. But I suppose the obvious thing is, it's not another bestiary. Obviously we've got Bestiary 1, Bestiary 2 and Bestiary 3, and now we've got Monsters of Myth. What this book is a detailed and very kind of focused description of 20 monsters. All of these monsters are unique kind of creatures, legends, myths, clues in the name. And it's a guide on how and when and where and what to do with them in your campaign. So it's not like, oh, here's Fire Giant number 7. Do you know what I mean? Each of these creatures is named for a reason. And they all have like an intro and kind of snippets of their legends and their tales, and kind of story-esque mini kind of flavour bits that kind of give you an idea of their place in the world. To give you an idea, the obvious one, because it's Christmas, is Krampus, which those of you in Germania, as the Romans called it, would know as essentially as the anti-Christmas. Krampus is a festive Christmas monster that would come and like kill and take away naughty children. And this Krampus is pretty similar. He comes and gets bad people at that particular time of year. Good little children, lay down your heads. Good little children, pray in your beds. The Krampus comes to hunt tonight, his cloven hooves on snow so white. The kind and gentle turn him way, but naughty ones won't see the day. Irisian traditional folk song there. So each one of these unique monsters, and that's a great little snippet, is tied to a particular place on Golarion. So these monsters are like hard baked into the lore and the fluff and the flavour of the Pathfinder world of Golarion, which is a great idea. They are really trying to cement in and uniquely craft their space, their world, and their kind of their view of it, which I'm all in favour of, because that's a really important thing to have. The most important thing about a good story is the lore of the setting. It's why Lord of the Rings works so well, because you've got that grounding in it. It makes it more credible. They detail the monster in terms of, they give you like a flavour story that kind of cements it in. They give you kind of unique aspects of it. So here's a brief snippet of Krampus. A Spirit of Envy is the title of this section. Winter holidays are popular in the cold northern lands of Avistan, where they provide a welcome interlude of light, warmth and joy in a long, hard season. Nearly every culture has at least one midwinter holiday. and often cheerfully adopt people often cheerfully adopt their neighbours' festivities as well. Most communities embrace any excuse to enliven the grim tide of the short days. Where there is happiness, however, particularly happiness that comes with obligations to one's neighbours and kin, whether or not one feels kindly towards them or not, and which demands the sharing of scarce resources in a time of potential hardship, there are also the inseparable shadows of envy, resentment, and selfish greed. Some say Krampus is the embodiment of these destructive emotions. Tall, goat-like and horned, he's said to have a hideous snarling face, a long and greasy tongue, and coarse, foul-smelling fur. He leaves cloven hoof prints melted into the snow, and is always described as male. The oldest tales of Krampus come from Irisian, but even in those stories he is portrayed as the malevolent, otherworldly spirit who trespassed from some other realm to torment the towns and villages in this world. One story holds that he was accidentally summoned by druids who were trying to call a fae of the first world, but whose ritual was corrupted. Another portrays him as a fiend who broke loose from holy bindings and now trails his captors' ruined chains as a taunt. So you can already see how they're like building in the folklore. Really, that's so that a GM can build in to the campaign that kind of flavour and theme as they're in the world and they're going in, and it's perhaps coming up to winter time and you've got this opportunity. This is a kind of book that gives you those opportunities to kind of put in something really unique. So they talk about things that the monsters do. In this particular case, let's have a quick look at colon rushers. Although Krampus' origins and nature remain cloaked in mystery, a few things about him are known. He only appears in conjunction with winter holidays, but isn't bound to any specific tradition and can torment mortals during or up to 2 weeks before any cold weather celebration. Good to know. You know, he's fairly lax and liberal in his approach to holidays. Brilliant. His visits usually occur on snowy, frigid nights and are heralded by the clanging of his chains. Not all Krampus stories end in death or kidnapping, however. Folk stories sometimes portray him as a mischievous figure who can be persuaded to leave villagers alone with offerings of bawdy humour or strong drink, although even then his practical jokes skew towards dismemberment, which isn't so much a practical joke, but, you know. So his most infamous prank, however, involves tempting greedy mortals with a seemingly valuable gift offered in exchange for some minor ethical breach. Should the mortal commit the sin and claim the prize, it turns out to be a cursed lump of coal. Krampus's curse afflicts the recipient for either a year and a day, until the mortal can trick someone else into taking the coal, or until the mortal wins absolution through good deeds, depending on the story. In a few tales, the mortal even tricks Krampus into taking the cursed coal back. That's definitely a high-level bard. Or rogue, with some pretty sweet deception rolls there. So they kind of start building on elements of the monster's kind of role in the world. And then we've got a cavalcade of imitators. In some region, Krampus has inspired a tradition of masked revellers who dress up in hides, horns, and cloven-footed boots to imitate him. They parade about in towns and villages, rattling chains, flailing birch rods, and singing off colourful songs in pre-holiday celebrations that often veer towards the drunk and disorderly. Sometimes they get carried away, including indulging in behaviours that cross the line from rowdiness to outright cruelty. And then they kind of dabble on that a little bit longer. Sometimes if their pranks become too harmful, celebrants may even be seized by the true spirit of Krampus, which transforms them into monstrous, horrifying figures bent on wreaking havoc among their friends and neighbours. This curse is said to only last for a night and a day. Then they kind of talk about other elements to Krampus that perhaps he's misunderstood, because often he is punishing the guilty, and there's a bit that kind of flavours on that. And then they start to talk about how Krampus fits into a campaign, and this is the bit that's really useful. Obviously, you've got that flavour and that kind of narrative and that lore that establishes the monster. Krampus is a great example because obviously, he is a tradition in our own world, and a lot of these kind of flavour in from kind of global culture. Although kaiju are in here, that's right, giant monsters. And the first thing that my partner said when I showed the picture of kaiju was, "Oh my God, it's Godzilla!" Because one of the kaiju looks a lot like Godzilla. So if you want Godzilla in your games, kaiju. And see what happens. Obviously, they are a suitably high-level monster. Now, in your campaigns, though Krampus is a powerful creature, this spirit of punishment can be part of any campaign, and this is the clever trick they've put on this. So, low-level campaigns, mid-level campaigns, and then high-level campaigns each have a specific section for each monster that kind of explains how you go about crafting them into a campaign, so that you don't just turn up with a level 21 kaiju and stamp on a level 3 party. They kind of talk about how you would kind of fit them in dynamically and how things around them might affect a party. So perhaps, for a low-level party, perhaps they never fall prey to Krampus, but they come across people and villages that perhaps have, and then they deal with the aftershock of that. Does that make sense? I hope so. You might even never face Krampus, but you might fight a cultist who has dressed themselves in the manner of Krampus, and is kind of lost his mind to a Krampus-like curse without being a full-bore, high-level monster. And you have that whole suspense and build-up of a low-level party thinking, oh my God, we're going to be eaten by Krampus. And then it turns out that it's like a horrible serial killer, like, blacksmith, who has crafted a costume and is doing all the horrible stuff. That is an entirely legitimate kind of way of doing it. And that's kind of how they break down this section, each one giving you an idea of what's appropriate for challenge rating and if you like, plot style and ideas. So, mid-level characters, I'm jumping to that one. And this is roughly 8 to 14 as a ballpark for level guides. Mid-level characters can attempt to help defend a settlement from Krampus's presence. The most likely way to do this is to set up wards to keep Krampus away. According to some tales about Krampus, he was originally spawned as part of a druidic ritual, so the wards against him would need to be druidic in nature. Learning the necessary information can be laborious. The PCs would need to track down what information they can about the original cleric circle of druids that called Krampus forth. Learn some kind of primal magic that can replicate this process. Finding the original druids might be impossible, as legends state that Krampus slaughtered these druids for their misdeeds some time ago. The PCs could find the original site of Krampus's calling. However, and what's left of the ritual could offer insights into the magic used. Alternatively, legends also note that Krampus' spirit originated in the First World, the primal realm of the Fae. Though Krampus himself is not a Fae, the power of the First World could be a key to creating a proper ward. Travelling in between the First World can be difficult, but the boundary between the First World and the material plane are thin in many places on Glorian. So you can already see how they're kind of putting the tools in place. Now that section carries on for, a good couple of paragraphs. There's a good chunk of stuff that will help you kind of steer a party and inform a party of things that they can do to be useful when dealing with this kind of thing. You've got the next section after that is kind of like a mini bestiary at this point. And we've got Life Imitates Art. This is a Krampus celebrant. So this is one of the locals who's gone a bit mental and got himself all garbed up. And the artwork is fab. And he's got this horrible, monstrous kind of mask on with these horns. And he's got chains. And he's wearing this kind of horrible looking coat. And he's kind of, got like a full bore kind of Krampus costume going on. And then there's all his kind of monster stats, as you'd expect them. So he's the Krampus Celebrant is a level 8 creature. What level is Krampus? If the guy pretending to be Krampus is already level 8, I mean, that's a bit of a tasty fight for a level 6 party. So it already you can already see how you could have this whole thing for a low-level party of, oh my god, Krampus is going to come to the village and kill people, and it's not Krampus at all, it's this nutter. Which I really like. I think that's a really cool idea for a kind of a suspensey kind of interlude. You can even do it as not quite a one-shot. I think this is the kind of thing you might want to do maybe 2 or 3 sessions of, but it's definitely got that kind of a vibe. And this is just one of the 20 monsters. So you can see where they're going with it. It's very cool. And then you've got the Horned Miser himself. There are specific items relating to Krampus, and obviously that's referring back to the tests that he gives people that turn into these cursed lumps of coal. The test of the golden rods, details on that obviously are here in the book. And they give you kind of a breakdown of the challenges that Krampus might set someone. Another brilliant tool to have as a games master. And then obviously you've got from there, I suppose, how you then kind of go about bringing him in, taking him on and taking him down. So that's one of the monsters. One of the ones that immediately stood out to me from the artwork was one called the Deserts Howl. And again, it's this kind of a bit similar to Krampus, ironically, cloven hooved, horrible kind of nightmarish kind of evil blackened claws out of the end of its fingers, and the kind of the big beard and goat head and pallid flesh. And it's a desert-based monster, Deserts Howl. Imagine that. The creature first appeared for a few hours each night, trailing us from afar. With a silhouette like an oryx, we had a good laugh that it had startled us. As it departed, our dreams became filled with increasingly disturbing thoughts. Our once cheerful group grew anxious and irritable as insomnia set in, accusations of slights and betrayals becoming commonplace. Angry outbursts turned to desperate wails as we time and again found ourselves back where we started, with dwindling supplies. Now the creature has returned, following more closely. We can at last see all too plainly the hunger in its wild eyes and the quivering of its too human mouth. It seems to disappear when we look away or dare to approach, only to reappear hours later, sometimes alongside us, sometimes behind us, and occasionally watching from atop cliffs or behind acacia trees. And then it's the next note is simply unattributed diary discovered in the Thuvian deserts. Brilliant. A malevolent and ageless creature known as the Desert Howl has haunted the Thuvian deserts for over 3,000 years. Better get a really high-level party together and go and kill it, is my response to that. And you'll need to be a high-level party, because surviving in a desert is already very challenging. And then taking on this particular powerful monster, probably going to be pretty tough, because Deserts Howl is a 19th level creature, which is fab. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with Desert Howl, because I don't want to spoil all the monsters in the book. The cover art, obviously, is another one of the monsters that you will find within. That is a Linorm from the land of the Linorm Kings. He's known as the father of Linorms. He has a name that I cannot pronounce, but I will try to pronounce now. Now, I have said Fafnir as his name, but that's probably wrong. Fafnheir. Fafnir is how I've chosen to pronounce that. And he is the father of Linorms and basically a monstrously powerful kind of level 22, 24 level Linorm. And Linorm's already pretty tasty, so he's basically an absolute ass kicker of a Linorm. But obviously I'd mentioned there are various monsters in here. Now, not all of them are epic level. Not all of them are these big, heavy hitters. You know, like I said, there's that, you know, Krampus Disciple who's like challenge rating 8 level, creature level 8. And obviously Deserts Howl is 19 and so on and so forth. There is a broad mix of monsters. Most of them tend to be at the kind of the upper mid to upper level, but not all of them. There are some that are more appropriate for lower level campaigns, but still are powerful enough and dangerous enough to be a mythic monster, a monster that has been around long enough and is scary enough and devastating enough to have myths created about it, which is, I think, the important gist of this book. So if you really want kind of next level bestiary monsters to kind of really kind of craft a mini campaign, or even in some of the like the epic monsters, a kind of a full kind of saga like campaign out of, this book will give you really rock solid foundations to go and do that. Like I said, there is lots of guidance on how to run campaigns around these monsters, with them as a kind of an epicenter or focus point of that kind of adventure. There is a lot of cool lore and fluff. There's obviously all the kind of the things that you need to know relating to what they have that makes them unique. And again, I think it's one of those things where it's a great opportunity to really kind of cement in a very classical saga kind of type storytelling. I mean, if you look at the Tale of Beowulf, Fafnir is an exact kind of, I suppose, story-driven, classic-inspired saga. If you're playing high-level characters or mid-level characters in and around the land of the Linnom Kings, this is an opportunity to become legendary. Now, whether you survive, because these monsters are, in some cases, very challenging, because they are mythic, they are legendary, but I mean, you'll certainly be greeted at the gates of Valhalla dying in a battle to Fafnir, I can promise you that. So it's not going to be a book that's for everybody. I think this is one of those books where it's not just a case of it's not very good, don't buy it, or it's incredible, buy it, because it's a very unique book in the way that there are 20 powerful monsters and they are assorted, and it is about their lore and their story and how you integrate that into a game. So if you're a GM and a group that wants to do something that is very much, like I said, with the idea of kind of, you know, Beowulf, or even the Lord of the Rings kind of building up to taking on that dragon, this is a great way of doing that. And you could even, to an extent, replace monsters or move monsters, because although these are built into the core bedrock of Golarion on paper, that doesn't mean that your Golarion is the same as their Golarion. Again, this is one of those things where I kind of aside to how you want to run your game. So if you want to put in, you know, Deserts Howl, but he isn't in a desert, he is a creature that does the same thing in a winter environment, do it. You know, you've got that kind of opportunity. Again, if you don't want to have them have all of the story exactly as it is, but you really like one of perhaps the lower tier monsters, there's a really cool kind of lion creature that's like a lesser monster of the greater monsters pantheon, if you like. And it's got like multiple eyes, and it's a huge lion. I think it's like challenge rating or creature level like 10 or something. Just a really cool, crazy, huge lion. And you just want that to be something that you throw into the world because it's cool and fantastical. This gives you that kind of resource. So has it got as much oomph in it as, you know, in terms of value for money of a bestiary? No, because it's only got 20 monsters. Well, I say 20. It's got 20 core kind of mythic monsters. There's probably maybe another half dozen kind of ancillary supporting creatures, as well as obviously advice on what other monsters relate to those monsters that are from the bestiary books. But it gives you a lot of lore, it gives you some really good guidance on how to structure campaigns around powerful monsters, which again, you know, a lot of this you could apply to a dragon, full stop, or even a, you know, like a 20th level giant, for example. You can take this as a really good guide on how to structure that kind of a story around powerful foes and really make a classic super kind of powerful monster villain the kind of the centerpiece of a campaign. Which, if you've not done that before, many of you probably have, this is a great way of giving that a go and having good guidance and support that's not a full published adventure. If you want to be a bit more kind of, maybe you're thinking about homebrewing a story, but you want some good solid framework to build that story around, this is a really useful book for that. So, like I said, it's a hard one to say it's a must-have, because it's not a must-have book at all. What it is it's a wonderful addition to a rich collection of books that will enable you to do a lot more and some also quite unique things at your game. And if that's for you, then this book's for you. If it's not, pass it by. Simples. But that is my, if you like, rundown of Monsters of Myth. I love it. I think it's fab. The artwork is brilliant. It's got great opportunity to kind of throw in big monsters. Obviously, Krampus at this time of year as a surprise kind of monster in your sessions going forward is a very funny idea. I, however, can't do that because some of the people I game with will have watched this and be like, oh, he's going to attack us with Krampus now. So sorry, guys, can't do that because I've let the cat out of the bag by having a YouTube channel. Dope! Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully I have tickled your fancy and perhaps teased enough to give you a better understanding and insight of Monsters of Myth. And hopefully, all things considered, I will see you next week for some more video content. We've got reviews in the works for The Grand Bazaar, another book that's about to, if not already out. And I've also got a review in progress on the City of Myth book about Absalom, the city at the centre of the world, to be precise. So those two content drops are coming hopefully next week. But again, I'll keep you all posted. Stay safe, stay classy, and I will see you next week to start that review of those books. Any questions, obviously, just drop me a comment below, drop me a like, drop me a sub, and I will see you on the flip side. Peace.